I think he was a victim of himself and the image and the legend. And
do you regret having written the book, and what impact do you think his death is going to have on it?
I don't have regrets for writing the book. I have a lot of sorrowful feelings about the timing, because what's happening now, the rumors that are going about, is that there are some rumors around trying to portray us as bloodsuckers who wrote this book to capitalize on the death of Elvis Presley. And they never seem to realize that the book was written a year ago, when he was alive.
Well, David and Sonny, at the spur of the moment, many times before, Elvis used to go up and just buy gifts for people, automobiles and everything else. Why did you do that?
He loved to give.
Did the drugs have anything to do with that?
I don't think so. I think it was just the spirit. He wanted to see the person's face when he gave it to him. I mean, it was he was insistent upon that. He liked to see, and he would be with them and share it with them, boy, for that time. And then the next day, he didn't want you to mention it, that, you know, it was gone and past, and that moment was it, and he gave it to you, and he wanted you to just accept it in that sense, that he enjoyed giving it to you, and he didn't want you to carry on about it over a period of time. Excuse me. And he loved to give. We went with him one time to a black lady in Memphis that he had read about in the paper that was crippled. And he read about it, just an article in there, no special appeal thing. And he went and bought the most expensive wheelchair, electric wheelchair, and took it over to her and gave her some money and stuff. I mean, this is the way it was.
What feedback had you ever gotten from Elvis on the book? Did you get any of that?
No.
No.
He said he wasn't worried about it.
What did he mean, do you think?
He just meant that he wasn't. He knew, man, that we loved him. He knew that we weren't going to chop him up or try to axe him or anything. He knew. He knows now that. I'm telling you.
What was the purpose of calling this press conference? I'd like you to spell it out.
To counteract what we think people have gone around without reading the book, just going out and thinking from hearing from someone on a certain individual on different shows about their reaction to the book, and they haven't read the book, and then some of the people that are talking haven't read the book, and we think that I think it deserves a fair thing for us to be able to say our side and how much we did love the guy and how much admiration we had for him. When we wrote this book, it was out of bitterness and hurt to start with. I tell you, when we were given 3 days notice by his father and a week's pay, after 16 years, 20 years, 2.5, 3 years with Dave, we all had families, and he wouldn't talk to us himself. He flew out of town, and he had his father do it.
Why did he terminate you?
At the time, it was told us by his father that there was a cutback on expenses, which I knew wasn't true. And he called me, and he said, so we're going to have to let a few people go. And I said, and I'm one of the people? And he said, yeah. He said, but there's going to be others. And I asked him, well, would you tell me who? And he said, no, I'd rather tell him personally. It turned out to be Dave and Red. And since then, there have been rumors that got back to us that it was because of the lawsuits that were against him. One for me, where I had hit a guy up in Tahoe that was trying to break in a locked exit door and turned out all our utilities, and had drawn back on Elvis's stepbrother. When I got to the hallway, he was drawn back, and I hit him, and that was his only time. Body chops, and Elvis had never touched him. So that was going nowhere. But it was a hassle. He had to go give his deposition. He had to go up to the hotel there, to Tahoe, and give a deposition. And the man put his hand out to this guy, Ashley, that was hurt when we let go.
And what about when you wrote the book?
Well, if you read the book, I don't think you'll see bitterness.
Well, I don't have time to read the book before I write a story. We have a daily paper to think about. I haven't got time to sit down and read the book. I've got to hear what you have to say.
Well, that's unfortunate, because the problem is that, you know, everything is inexorably tied into the book. And, you know, I can't apologize for your lack of time not being able to read the book.
Well, your author, Dunleavy, seems to be prompting he's read the whole book, I assume, since he wrote it. He keeps talking about drugs all the time.
Well, he's sensationalism. I mean, he writes for the Star. As you know, it's on the same thing as the Enquirer, the sensationalism type thing. He's writing for the New York Post, too. He's running a series of articles in there. And when we met him, he wasn't like that when we were with him last year. I mean, he was interested. He broke down with us during the interviews when he saw one of us get moved, when we would recall an instance of what this man had done. And I couldn't believe that was the same guy up there. I could not believe.
Have you tried to talk to him? What would you tell him if you could talk to him right now? Are you upset
I would
with
I would tell him, Steve. Well, I can't say what I'd tell him. No, it would be curse words. I mean, I would call him a name. I said, "What are you doing, man? Who are you? You were someone we told a story to, and you're going up there and blasting into him like that and saying the whole thing's about drugs. It's not. There's love and admiration in there.
Is the book a misrepresentation?
Not at all. It's fact. It is true.
Well, where is the sensationalism then?
The drugs thing that he keeps trying to bring up as the main thing, and it's not. The drug things are mentioned in there minutely. If you read it, you'll see. But he went up there and could watch this man being embalmed, that was alive and well that day or something before, and I couldn't do that. But he was fat. It wasn't a thing of where he was an org type of killing and things with their hands. He was into all of these things. It wasn't just with death. He was curious about everything in life. He really was.
It wasn't
Are you
a
going to
morbid
hear-
thing.
Why are you hearing?
We have been told by
We live here.
someone that his father doesn't want us there.
And do you think Dunleavy's a phony now after all this?
I think that what I
That's
saw
your
today
words.
was phony from the guy that I met a year ago. Yes, I do.
You think he's a phony?
Dave, you seem to be implying before that you were writing the book in part to try and get Elvis to change his ways. Is that right?
You bet. That was one of the reasons. There were a number of reasons for writing the book. Number one, we felt that the manner in which we were discharged wasn't right. I mean, any employer has the inalienable right to fire any employee. No question about that at all. But nobody has a right to treat you like a piece of garbage. You know, nobody. And number two, to continue with that, is again, you know, to reiterate what we said earlier a couple of times, we wanted to point out to him, you know, what he was doing, not only to himself, but to the people around him. And we didn't want him to be what he was. We wanted him to be what we knew he could be and had been, you know, again. And thirdly, we wanted to, my God, we had families, you know, and we're sitting out in the streets, and what are we going to do? Be 40-year-old stuntmen? Or
I wanted to add one thing to that. See, that's what I mean. A certain individual took the quote thing from me in the front page about maybe it will do some good. He didn't know what it means. He says, what does it mean it'll do some good? If he had read the book, he would have found in there that we were trying to present him with a challenge. Because if he looked back and saw all these things roll in front of him and know that they were true, I don't know how he might have dismissed them in his mind as the years went by. Well, it wasn't like... But when he saw it the way that it happened, like anyone else, when you read something about your former life or anything that you've done years ago, the reality of it is in front of you. It's not something you can... You know how it was. And that's what I meant when I said maybe it will do some good for him, for the drug culture, for people to realize no one is out of reach of drugs, man. Here is a man that had it in the palm of his hand and started off with it that way, and the drugs took it away from him.
Have you?
Okay, that's
have
it.
you,
I'm
wait a minute.
sorry.
Now we had to wait. So you know, this is a two-way situation.
being a contributory factor.
What's your response to that?
Absolute nonsense. You know, how could it possibly have, you know, as a matter of fact, he even stated himself that, you know, he wasn't concerned about the book. And according to people, and you've seen it on the newscast, he's been for the last week, been very happy and looking forward to this upcoming tour.
Sonny, did his depression ever lead him to be suicidal at all?
No,
that was
too
never-
strong a person.
no,
No,
never happened.
never.
How do you think that his death will affect...
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you know how much the book is sold? How many copies it's sold?
We have no idea.
No idea. It just was released.
We have no idea, and we don't really care.
Gentlemen, will you sit down and just split the mics, please?
Yeah. All the way down.
And kind of speak up. Thank you.
Hey, as you look at the table, Dave Hebler is on the show.
Do you have a statement to make, or we just gonna ask you some questions?
No, the reason that we are here is to, because we've seen some of the coverage on this, and we think that it's been entirely put in the wrong light by different individuals, and we'd like to see if somehow we can get it straight.
What is the straight?
The straight is that we love that man. That's what the straight is. And I'm telling you, no one could have been more shook up by that man dying than me. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And we wrote this, we started in this a year ago.
Speak up, please.
We started in this a year ago. And there's been nothing added, anything different than what it was already. The book was already completed, and we didn't expect anything like him to do this, because otherwise it would have gone on, and whether he put a lawsuit against us or whatever he would have done.
But if you love the man, why do you drag all of this information out and make it public?
Have you read the book?
I have not.
Okay. Wait till you read it.
I'm reading the synopsis.
Right. Well, read the book, please. I mean, you don't have to buy it. Just read it from someone or hear someone that's read it, and find out that it's not the drug thing that's in there that so sticks out. It's the things that we did crazy, the good times, the things we had, and how we felt that the drug things changed him into the person that he became. That's all, his health and everything. But we did not specify that the drugs were the whole thing throughout.
I understand that. Why do you want to tell that part, that side of Elvis?
Well, ever since I've known Elvis, this man has needed a challenge, and he's met it. He did it in 1973. When he is overweight, he was going to do a satellite show going into 25 countries, 1 billion people. People had never seen him perform before, and he knew it, and he went on a diet. He got down to about 165 pounds, the best I had seen him look in several years, and he put on a dynamite show. And then he went right back to what he was doing before. He just didn't care. I don't know if he was getting bored. He loved performing, but the time in between, all the time that he wasn't on that stage for that hour, I guess the man was just bored, and he was trying to find different things to do. He would get toys or things, grown-up things like three-wheelers, and ride them around Memphis just for an hour or so, just to get out. I mean, the man was limited. He could be in the middle of the crowd, and he could be lonely. He was one of the loneliest men I've ever seen in my life. And we tried to be with him and protect him and keep him happy as the best we could. I swear to God we did, man.
Sonny, you said you didn't understand why he did what he did. What do you mean by that?
On what part?
You were saying, I just don't understand why he did it. I don't know what you meant by that. Did what?
Why he did the drugs?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess because he was bored. He was bored, and unless he was on stage, the man didn't have anything to do.
What drugs are we talking about?
Was he hooked?
We're talking about uppers and downers. We're talking about sleeping pills. We're talking about things like Demerol. Yes.
You actually saw him take
Yes. Yes.
Was he a constant user of drugs? Is what you're talking about?
He would get on and off of them. I mean, it was, he would get on them, I guess, like I said, out of the boredom, and then he would, when he knew he had something to do and he had to be straight, he would go ahead and clear himself out of them for a while and just take the sleeping pills to go to sleep and not get totally out of it. Like after an engagement in Vegas, the first couple of days he would stay there, boy. After not being able to do anything except take sleeping pills and his uppers and things, he would just, for the first 2 days, just get totally wiped out on Demerol and things and just sit there and not even be able to open his eyes.
Sonny, over a period of how many years was he involved in taking drugs?
Well, he told us that a sergeant started him on Benzedrine or Dexedrine or something in the Army when he was on maneuvers out in the snow and everything. The sergeant said he didn't want the guys falling asleep, getting frostbit or frozen to death. He gave them, and this wasn't Army policy, it was just this sergeant had got them. And Elvis started using them then. When he came back, and I started for him in 1960, he was working out in karate. He had started, learning this art over there, and he was very enthused, and I started working out with him, and he was showing me, using me as what you call a dummy, where I would throw the punch, and he would show the counteracting moves. And we started coming out here on the movies, and we started taking the diet pills with him because he was, at the time, it was just diet pills, and then he would take sleeping pills to counteract and go to sleep, and we did the same thing. We were out on locations, we were playing football in 100-degree weather out here at Caneo on Flaming Star, and the director, no one knew how we did it. It was because of the uppers.
Well, based on what you know, then, do you believe that he died of natural causes, or do you believe that he died of a drug overdose?
I don't know, because I think one might contribute to the other. I think that, I'm not a doctor, I don't know what drugs do to your body, but I would think that over a period of time, that if you took enough drugs, regardless of, what he did with them, as long as he took them and kept taking them over that period of time, I would think that the body would start deteriorating. I would think that the heart wouldn't be used to the up and down that it would be underneath the pressure from cocaine or from uppers and then back to a real low beat. I don't know. I think
cocaine too?
Yes.
Sonny, when
There were reports that not only was he pretty heavily into cocaine and quaaludes, but that he also was on some of the even harder stuff, the good hard drugs, heroin, for example. Did he ever do that?
I swear to God, I never saw him take any heroin. Never. I think it might have frightened him. He felt manipulating. That's how he got into the downers, because in the movies, he noticed himself up on the screen talking so fast that he felt that he needed to counteract it and slow down, because he would say, I can't even understand that southern guy up there talking about himself. And he started experimenting with things to get him up and things to keep him there instead of taking him on up as high as the diet pill would, because I think that he was inhibited by cameras. He could get in front of a live audience and, man, everything came out of him. But I just think the impersonality of a camera and the way it stares at you, and I felt that he felt really shy, because he was basically shy, and I think that he felt basically shy in front of the camera so much that he started giving these to give him confidence, because I've taken diet pills and they give you confidence.
Did he ever have illegal supplies of drugs, or were they all prescription drugs?
No, the only ones I knew of were prescription, but in such amounts. He had so many doctors.
Cocaine?
Well, the cocaine didn't come from the doctors. It came from people that got it to him that weren't associated with him in the capacity of a doctor. And there's an incident in the book relating to that, about how my cousin Red charged in to stop it one time. I think he broke the guy's toe or something going through the door, and told him that he was going to break him up if he didn't quit getting the stuff to him. And Elvis heard about it, and meantime they had been mixing BX powder, or whatever you call it, with the stuff and grading it down. And it wasn't doing anything for him. And then he asked the guys about the stuff, and they finally admitted that they were scared and had been frightened by Red. And he called Red and Joe into a bedroom at a hotel on tour, and he told them that there would be no more bullying tactics, no scaring tactics, because these guys were scared of him, and that they discussed it for a while. And then finally he looked at Red and said, I'll never forget it, he said, I need him, man, I need it. And Red said, if you need it, then I won't ever do anything else about it. And that was the last attempt that Red had made from then on to stop things getting to him. We used to take things that came to him and break them down and change them. Change what was in the pain pills and things that he took. See, this is why I say it was all prescription stuff that he would get, that I saw it, except for the cocaine.
Did the other doctors know? In other words, he had 3 or 4 doctors who would be maybe giving him the same prescription. One doctor wouldn't know.
Different cities and not knowing it. Yes, sir, that is very possible.
The person who put the book together, Dunleavy, he said, I don't know if you've been pleased with the...
Only being out when he was a week and a half, 2 weeks at a time, just from the plane to the hotel, from the hotel to the building to do the show, and back to his hotel room, and locked in there till he left the next day. And when he couldn't stay up high, and he was just bored, and he would take these things to get him on stage and do it. And then he would take something to put him out so he could go to sleep, because he had to get up the next day and go to another city. But once he's on the stage, he's performing with everything he's got. He loved it.
Dave, how do you feel about all this?
Dave, are you in agreement? Yeah. Did you see all this yourself?
I'd like to respond to it in a couple of ways. Number one, I'm a little bit distressed about the total emphasis on drugs and that particular aspect of our life, Elvis's life, because it really wasn't, you know, just that. There were a number of things. We lived with the man, you know. We loved him, we cared for him, and I think it was reciprocal. The book very clearly, I think, demonstrates that we had nothing but total respect for the man. We wanted more than anything else to see him as he was in his prime, on the stage, just knocking him dead, you know.